Well, Chinese nationals reportedly accessing U.S. military bases and other sensitive sites more than 100 times in recent years. The Wall Street Journal reporting, quote, the individuals use what appears to be scripted language when confronted by security guards. When stopped, the Chinese nationals say they are tourists and have lost their way. Joining me now, retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel and Senior Fellow and Military Expert for Defense Priorities, Daniel Davis. Sir, good morning. So apparently, according to the Wall Street Journal, the Defense Department, the FBI, they've been looking into these incidents, which have been happening, quote, over several years, and they've been exploring this since last year, and it doesn't seem that anything has really changed.
Yeah, that's one of the concerning things about this, both that and the scope and the scale of what's been reported here. Because look, this is a potential major issue. If you've got Chinese nationals, passport-carrying Chinese so-called tourists, but then they're doing lots of things around sensitive military sites. I mean, look, there's always talk about the potential for the U.S. and China to go to war and clash over Taiwan or situation. If something should happen over there, it's entirely possible that they could be using these kinds of sources to plan attacks inside of America. And that's a real threat. And I think we need to be spending a lot more interest on this at the Department of Defense.
That was my big question. At first glance, you think that the Chinese and these Chinese nationals are coming over. They're trying to get hotel reservations on military sites, for instance. So are they looking to steal information from these military sites, defense information, or is it the other, which is more concerning, which is they're coming over because they want to look for weaknesses in our military? That's a pretty worrisome thought.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's a combination of all that. Of course, we don't know because we apparently don't detain them and interrogate them or find out what they're doing. They just shoo them away. And that's unfortunate. We've kind of lost an opportunity to gain some intelligence on what they're actually trying to obtain. And that's but that is a concern because there's a lot of things that could be done, and they're almost all negative from our perspective. Reconnaissance is just something that you don't want any adversary to do on your sensitive sites because they could find weakness to exploit, both in electronic means and in physical attack possibilities.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the issue of Taiwan, sir, because Chinese leader Xi Jinping, we found out over the weekend, he's going to skip the G20, which is in India. That starts on Thursday. All the big events are going to be Saturday and Sunday. President Biden's going to be there. But they're going to be sending China's premier instead. So the president was asked about this move. I want you to listen to what he had to say. Watch this.
Are you disappointed that President Xi is not going to the G20? How do you explain that?
I am disappointed, but I'm going to get to see him.
I'm going to get to see him, which had a lot of eyebrows raised because we're thinking, well, when's that supposed to be? U.S. and Chinese officials have reportedly been working on a possible Biden-Xi meeting in November that would happen on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation. That would be in San Francisco. Your thoughts, Lieutenant Colonel, on this? In particular, what do you expect from G20? And also that comment, well, I'm going to see him soon. Is that why all these Biden officials have been hightailing it over to Beijing over the last few weeks?
Well, look, I honestly hope that's the case, because if we're going to compete with China and, be aggressive to defend our interests, so you've got to be talking to China at the highest levels, and not talking to our adversaries or those we don't agree with almost never helps us out, never works out to our advantage. But when you have the president of the United States talking directly to the leader of China face to face, and he can, ideally, he can emphatically press our issues forward, that carries a lot more weight than sending some deputy undersecretary of whatever for the State Department. So if we're going to get our interests really cared for, it's going to take some high-level engagement.
Well, the White House National Security Council is saying yesterday that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is expected to travel to Russia to meet with Vladimir Putin, and that arms negotiations between the two are going to be advancing now. The New York Times also reporting over the weekend that Kim's going to travel by armored train for the trip, which is scheduled for September 10th through the 13th, again, over the 9/11 anniversary. Lieutenant Colonel Davis, your reaction to that?
Yeah, this is something we really need to pay a lot of attention to, because this is potentially expanding another area of our potential adversaries working together. And, and we've been doing lots of actions, which, again, while I say diplomacy is so important at the highest levels, we've kind of been pushing Russia and China together over, over how we're reacting, especially both over some trade issues and all over the Russia-Ukraine war. And we're pushing Russia and Iran together. So that's turned into arms. And now then this is potentially expanding, according to the Russian Minister of Defense, into potential joint military maneuvers with North Korea and Russia. And that has not happened since the end of the Cold War, since the USSR fell apart. So that could be expanding our potential adversaries working together. That's just not a good thing.
I guess I'm going to bring Liz Peek in, but I was thinking to myself, too, what kind of arms, what kind of equipment does North Korea have? Because all their people are starving. But that's just me. Liz Peek, go ahead.
It seems to me that nothing this administration has done has held China accountable for anything. We send emissary after emissary, high-level cabinet officials over to China. They come home empty-handed and often humiliated personally by not getting the meetings that they chose, being kept waiting, etc. What on earth should be done to get this administration focused on China, the China threat? One of the first things they did was remove the China initiative that the Trump administration had put in place to ferret out espionage on our college campuses, et cetera. But now it's gotten worse. I can't imagine that Congress should not intervene in some way or make this administration own up to the fact that China is having their way with the United States.
Well, look, first and foremost, you've got to have a strategy. You've got to have a plan.
Right.
You got to know what you want to accomplish. And I think that we're doing lots of disconnected things. We push hard in some areas and we use some tough rhetoric in some areas, and then we don't take action, like you just mentioned there with some of these nefarious things that China appears to be doing inside the United States. Those seem to be going almost without actions, which, of course, only encourages China to continue trying more. And until we have a coordinated and coherent strategy that looks to protect American interests, but also doesn't go too far and push China in antagonistic ways that don't help us and don't give us the leverage we need, you're going to continue having these chaotic, sporadic events that don't help us. And I really would like to see that change.
Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis, it's good to see you as always.
Thanks, Cheryl. Always good to see you.